Hello and welcome Khurram Qureshi's podcast. I welcome you again. Today we have Melissa Haddad in our guest as a podcast guest for the Khurram Qureshi. And I'm really excited to talk to Melissa because she has great stories to tell, and I'll tell you that you will definitely enjoy them. So Melissa, thank you for coming in our podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
That's great. So Melissa, please tell me about you, who you are, what do you do, where you live, and all of that.
All of that. Okay, just sum it all up. Melissa Haddad. I am the owner, CEO, leadership consultant, coach for Efficient Business Solutions. We're located, I work from my home office and in Oshawa.
Yes.
And just kind of about me, I am a mother of two, married to my college sweetheart. I met my husband when I was 19 years old, and well, I'm not going to tell you my full age. However, I am, up there. We are actually about 27 years together.
Very nice, very nice. It's glad to know, you're married and you're happily married. And we're going to talk about that, the obstacles and challenges coming to marriages too.
Yeah.
Because I wanted this podcast to be spontaneous and genuine and as straightforward as possible.
Absolutely.
We don't sugarcoat anything, and we want to hear the real life stories from Canadians. Mm-hmm. And it's time that, we record them, sit down, and have a normal and good conversation.
Absolutely.
Fruitful conversation, because that's what the audiences need, and actually the Gen XYZ needed to listen to from their elders and learn a few things and adopt in their life.
Yep.
So Melissa, before you started the new coaching side of the business that you began, please give us an overview, what you were doing it before, what was your previous business, as well as your corporate experience.
Okay, so I started my business about 8 years ago. And before that, I was in the corporate world as an executive administrative assistant for various corporations. And with all of that, I kind of gained my craft, if you will. I gained the experience to start my business as a virtual assistant. And the virtual assistant side of the business still is going. I still have a team that's under me, as well as I have my own clients as well. I'm moving into kind of a new direction within my business right now, which is leadership consulting, coaching, and in the corporate world, kind of addressing a couple of issues within that corporate dynamic.
Very nice.
And I've kind of, because I come from the corporate world, and I've owned my own business for 8 years, I have a unique perspective to kind of address some of these issues.
That's absolutely great, and glad to know. So can you put a little bit a spotlight when you say the virtual assistants, what was that? And then I will come to the coaching side of it.
Sure. The virtual assistant is, so every small business, every entrepreneur tries to do it all themselves.
Correct.
And you can't. Wearing too many hats, you lose sight of what you actually started your business for. Sure. And so where I came in was to offset some of those administrative tasks, or how to run your business. So scheduling could be calendar management, bookkeeping, website updates. The list continues. And what I kind of did within my business was I made it so that the whole business, we didn't take care of just one specific thing. It was the entire business as a whole. Because if you look at a corporation, for example, corporations have departments. So you have your marketing department, you have your customer service department, you have reception, and you have various other departments. And that's kind of what I looked at it upon. I was in all the jobs that I worked in, I kind of had many hats, and so I took it upon myself to do all of that.
Very good, interesting. And many people don't realize that, it's a lot of work, and it was a responsible position to have.
Absolutely.
That's good.
Absolutely.
Good. So please enlighten a little bit of light on the new coaching side of the business, consulting side of the business. Explain the coaching first, please.
So where I'm coming from, and I'll kind of take it back a step. I've always coached my clients as an entrepreneur, trying to get them to understand that you can't do it all. To run and grow a business, you cannot take it all on yourself. So I coach them in that aspect on letting go and trusting in the process, trusting themselves, trusting in me. And so that was a lot of the things that I did naturally. And then so it kind of led into, kind of morphed or evolved into another side of things. And where I'm coming from now is where I've got all of this experience, I've got all this knowledge, I've done my own personal development and my own growth on how to get from, being a virtual assistant, starting my own business, to where I am now. And so I've taken all of what I've known and I want to bring it out to the world. I've done mentorship through my team. I've coached my team as well, and just kind of taking a different side of it to bring it to corporations.
Very nice. And many people don't realize that, any of the service that you provide as a consultant, even as a virtual assistant, you were providing them the help, a little bit of structuring
Yes.
of the organization, which businesses don't realize comes into a separate part, which is planning, consulting,
Yep.
and coaching side of it. And that needs to be billed separately. People assume you're giving me the virtual assistant, why don't you
just do
secretary
everything?
and do this and
Yes.
that?
Yes.
Well, those job tasks were different, but I'm glad that you're taking a next step, and you shouldn't be shy about it. This is another thing that I tell business owners. If one thing is not working for you to the full capacity that you envision, don't be shy taking the next step or rebranding it or changing it.
Absolutely. And the challenge was what was that next step? It was the, how do I get from here to there? What do I really want? And kind of going to into the pandemic is really where I kind of evolved, is where am I? What do I want to do? I've done this forever. I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
And everybody was moving into their homes. I was like, okay, how do I get out of here?
Absolutely.
So, because I've done it for so long.
Absolutely. One of the positive impact, I should say, the people have on the pandemic, they make them realize their life, because
Yes.
everything pauses, and it was a moment that you are in one of the cave where there's no connection, nobody's coming, it's all you, earth, and a God. And then it makes you realize what is the purpose? And then many people rediscover themselves.
Well, so at the beginning of the pandemic, and I have anxiety, so it's just a daily thing that I have. And so when I heard that the school was, we're extending March break for 2 weeks, and that Thursday I was going into a panic. What do you mean everybody's coming home? And then my husband came home and started working from home. So him and I are sharing a space. My son and my daughter are in the kitchen doing homework. I'm like, what is, and I started having this big, huge panic attack going, what? Go away. And then the 2 weeks was extended to another 2 weeks, and then a month, and then 2 months, and so I finally realized that I'm not getting out of this. Nobody is leaving, and I'm now stuck at home, and how do I proceed? And it took me a while to really get into a groove with my husband being there and my kids being there. And then I realized this is okay. Now, fast forward, now my husband's going back into the office to do some work, and the kids are at school, and I'm like, everybody's gone. What's going on?
That's another impact of what you experienced in the early time, and many people faces that, depend on their family capacity and the situation they were in.
Yep.
And especially you, when you were doing the virtual assistants, you need to be quiet environment, and not dealing one client but multiple clients, then their clientele, then their scenario
Yep.
of the client situation. It's just stressful.
Yes.
So bravo that you handled it well, and bravo that you took the step to move forward in a new direction. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Early 2018, almost you say we're separated from your husband,
Yes.
and but your personal development helped you save your marriage and business.
Yes.
Can you please enlighten our audiences about
Absolutely.
it?
So, like any married couple who have children, life becomes stressful. Life becomes different. And because my husband and I met at such a young age, I was 19, he was 21, we grew up together. So we got married in our late 20s and, bought a house and, just our lives started to progress. When we had our daughter, I was undiagnosed with postpartum depression. And then it was only when my son came along 3.5 years later that the doctor said, you have postpartum depression. And I'm like, oh, lovely, this is great. So on top of all of that, I had anxiety. And then my husband and I were, my husband was working a lot. He was working 2 jobs because I was home with the kids and maternity leave and da-da-da-da-da. And so we grew apart. And it was I had a lot of resentment towards him, and he had a lot of resentment towards me. We neglected each other. We lost each other. I lost myself as a woman, as a female, as a person, because I was mom. And I was primary caregiver, and I was the one who was with the kids all the time. And I don't regret, by no means, but I had lost myself. And so I just got deeper and deeper into depression, postpartum, anxiety, everything. And so we really, at the end of 2017, it was December 2017, we hit a wall. And we really didn't know what we were doing, and we just exploded. And so we were angry, we were hurt. We actually both had talked about it, and we thought that December of 2017, our children went to Israel to see family with my mother-in-law, and we actually thought we were both going to request a divorce. Because it was that bad, but it was always, we were just doing things for the kids. Right. And so, like I said, the end of 2017, we hit a wall. We kind of, where are we going to go? Are we divorcing? Are we separating? What are we doing? And it took a lot of I did some personal development with my coach and at the time, and really saw a different light of who I am and who I want to be, and the patterns and thoughts and limiting beliefs that I held on to from when I was, a young age and stuff like that, and feelings of being unworthy and unworthy of love and unworthy of, I wasn't valued and stuff like that. And all of that came to light. And so I just thought that my husband was going to leave me because, well, this is what was going to happen, and this is where we were heading. And so we really I worked on myself. He worked through his issues, and we realized that I was not giving him what he needed, which was so we did the 5 love languages.
Okay.
And I found that he is a person of acts of service, and I am affirmation and physical touch. So we kind of bonded on that, because I realized that when he was asking me to iron his shirts, it wasn't because I was his wife and he wanted me to iron his shirts. Okay. It was because if I did those shirts, it was an act of showing him that I loved him. And so when he did stuff for me, it was him showing me love. And so when I asked him for a hug, it was something that I needed. And so it was reciprocal as opposed to transactional. Right. And we did a lot of work in 2018 and through the end of 2019, and then, the pandemic hit. And so we both realized, well, if we didn't do the work 2 years before that, then we would have been for sure divorced, because we wouldn't have, nobody was going to survive that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because people, I think, get into the relationship with only thinking sweet spots in life,
Yes.
but not the sour and sad spots. And this is where actually nobody's training us for.
Yeah.
The society, the media, like look at movies and all happy ending. Like
Romanticized.
Romanticized.
Yep.
That's a nice word. You said it. But reality is really challenging, really struggling, and really full of surprises, anxiety, and depression.
Yeah.
And I tell you, after our first child, I've seen and experienced the postpartum depression is, and managing that with family and with my mother who used to live with us too, and we were living with our family as a joint family with my brother. Seeing my brother's kid is growing up faster than our own
Yep.
kid and all of that. So much comparison, and
Oh,
back
yes.
home families,
Yes.
so talk about it minute by minute. kind of
Yes,
thing.
yes.
So that comes into play. But since my father died when I was very early age, so there was no support available.
Yeah.
So to you, my question to you is, how did you found a solution? Was you who found a solution? Your husband did? Or where did you find the solution of your marriage resolution?
It was a lot to do with me, because it was a lot of my issues. It was me. The resentment, the feelings of that I had because of the postpartum, because of me losing myself, and it was a lot on me that I was putting on myself. So I really had to I had to find myself. And even when my husband and I were working and trying to figure out, because again, we grew up, we moved into a different dynamic from when we were 19 and dating, and even when we were married. It was, it was fresh. It was, it was fine. It was fun. And we had to find that again. And so we for the longest time, part of what we were going through was, are we matched? Like, are we actually who we are? And so what do we have in common? And it took us a while to figure out, what do we actually have in common? Because we lost that because of kids.
Absolutely. And people don't realize kids take a toll on your life unlike anything else.
Oh, yeah.
They bring the challenges that you would, I think no training, no coaching, no counseling can be able to prepare you for. It's like a zillion scenario to once, and then your own health,
Yeah.
and then but isn't it funny, Melissa, after married for 10, 13, 15 years, you still question about the man or the woman that you loved and married, is it right? Or
Oh, I always go in the standpoint of this. So there's a lot of divorce in my family, and separation and stuff like that, and so I look at it from the standpoint of, okay, I'm 46 years old. Do I really want to be out there looking for somebody else and quote unquote training them to be to understand who I am? Hell no. I don't. The grass is not always greener on the other side. So there's no way I would want to. And so all the things that my husband and I have been through together, good times, bad times, sad times, it's irrelevant. We chose each other for a reason. And so we made our family. We have, my daughter will be 16 next month, and we have a 12-year-old son, thank you. And they've seen us come from misery, happy, to misery, to where we are now. And it's a completely different level. We're not in that romanticized, dating, oh, gushy gush, and we're not in we had the weekend before Valentine's Day, so we just had Valentine's Day.
Yes.
Last weekend, my husband and I had a big argument over something ridiculous, and it was the most, and my son was all concerned, and I said, dude, this is just something that parents do. And I looked at my husband, I'm like, I don't like this. This is not something I want to do ever again. And he's like, keeps it fresh. I'm like, are you kidding?
It's hilarious. That is hilarious.
I'm like, are you kidding? I don't want to do this. I don't like fighting. But it's something that you have to understand. You're two different people.
Melissa, I must give you the credit. You are the bravest woman I've ever met in my life.
Thank you.
You talking about your personal issues on the anxiety level to the personal issues on the marriage level, and then you disclose your age, even though you said earlier that you weren't going to. That is showing the humbleness, kindness, and trueness within you.
Thank you.
I truly wish that your family stays well, stays happy, and they're going to watch this podcast. How true and genuine you are in this and moment today to speaking up, because we need to speak up.
Yes.
The reason we are holding the whole lava within our own selves, because we're not talking straight. We are talking
totally.
to pleasing others,
Yep.
but not pleasing our own selves. And what happened is this anxiety, this stress, then as anger is start to cooking in and then end up in a wrong way. Either you become alcoholic or gambler or some kind of bad substance addiction, or you commit a suicide, God forbid.
Yep.
It is just just last month we did a youth event in Pickering Islamic Center, and we invited Mayor of Pickering, Kevin Nash.
Yes.
And he said it in public in front of all the audiences and live streaming. And that shows the synergy, people are opening up more than ever before. Then they speak. He said that his son committed suicide 5 years ago on April 1st, 2018, when he was 27 years old. He said it's okay to not to be okay.
Yeah.
Or it is okay not to be okay. So, and he said particularly to males and boys and young men that you got to open up.
Yep.
And this is exactly like what I'm telling my son too. You have an issue, talk to me. You don't hold the issue, take it in your bed, because that is not going to take the issue out.
I agree.
You're too young to manage it, and even adults. Look at you, you struggle, your husband struggle, and the family situation you were in from the Middle East Eastern background, because he's from Palestine.
He's from my husband's.
And you're truly born and
I'm
raised.
born and raised. I am the Caucasian of all Caucasians. Yes.
You got it. So dealing with that mindset scenario is a challenge, but I must tell you and give you the credit, you and your husband too, that you overcome the obstacle into a solution and come to the common ground that listen, we have spent quarter of our lives together, and it is not the point because of anything unless you made silly mistake which is unremovable, undeniable, mental stress, kid situation, financial situation, COVID situation can come and go.
Yep.
But as a husband and wife, institution of marriage is strong.
And you make mistakes.
Correct.
Mistakes are going to be made. You're not perfect. You're not, whatever you are, you're not the be-all, end-all.
Correct.
We all make mistakes. And I will commend my mother-in-law for being a devout Catholic. And she has, she pushed my husband, said, no, you're working on this.
Okay.
And I mean, we both needed our space, but she, no, we're working on this. And she said the same thing. No, you're working on this. Right. And so, we worked it out, but it was, mistakes. We owned up to mistakes, and whatever our parts were, we made sure that we were not going to fall into the same patterns, and we weren't going to carry it forward. And one thing is, now my husband and I can talk about that time without having resentment, without having feelings of hurt or blame or guilt. There's nothing attached to it. It is do you remember when, and back in those days, and how we felt and stuff like that, but there's nothing that holds us to it. So you have to also let it go. And one thing that to your point about children, is that my children both have anxiety as well. But from my experience, because I've handled my own, and I didn't know about it before when I was younger, obviously looking back now,
correct,
I had anxiety when I was younger, but not realizing it was not something you talked about. And so I now can help my children understand how to work through their problems and how to address their issues, how to talk about it. My son and my daughter are very close, and so when my son has a situation that he doesn't want to talk to us about, he at least goes to my daughter.
Okay.
And my daughter will, be there for him. And that's just, and so, but he'll come to us with some of the big stuff.
Right.
And that's important. It's that two-way street, knowing that we've left a door open for them to talk about their feelings, to discuss how they're feeling. If they're struggling, they talk to us about that as well.
Very nice. And I'm so happy to know that you complimented your mother-in-law. A lot of times, you don't see Canadian married women are complimenting them, and especially if they're from Middle East or Italian background, Nonas
She's tough.
or Greek.
She's a tough cookie. I have a whole new admiration for her. She raised two boys practically on her own.
Okay.
My father-in-law, he was there, but he was working, and they didn't have any family. My father-in-law brought her over from Israel, and when she was only 18 years old, a year later, she had my husband. A year and 2 days, actually.
Okay.
She had my husband, and so she was 19 years old with a baby, and my father-in-law worked. So she struggled, and she had a lot. And then they had gone. She goes back to Israel every other summer, something like that.
Okay.
And in 1976, she was there, and there was the bombing in the airport.
Okay.
And so they were there, they were stuck, and she was hurt, and they were stuck there. So I have complete admiration for her.
Very good. I'm glad that you complimenting your in-laws, and this is the thing a married couple should do often, and it really strengthens your relationship.
Absolutely.
So that's good.
Absolutely.
So Melissa, besides your husband and you, what about your kids? How did they end up managing in the whole transition of the stress between mom and dad, pandemic situation, and what are you doing for your kids to overcome the anxiety and problem solving? So,
when my husband and I were going through the potential separation and stuff, it was very stressful for my kids. My son was very hypersensitive, so anytime we would have a discussion, even when we weren't arguing, he was okay. You can't. He always didn't want us to have that conversation. So I realized that he was, it was going to take him some time, and we had to change so that he would feel comfortable. Time progressed. As the years went on, and in 2019, I took the family on a family trip, and so he was able to see us as a family unit. We were still together. We were still all whole, and so fast forward to the pandemic, we just made the most out of it. My son specifically was very sensitive to it. He is very much a rule follower. He follows the rules, so everything he always worried about. So if it was, I have to wear a mask, and he would wear a mask in a restaurant, and we would say, you can remove your mask because we're at the table. Nope. And until the food came on the table, that was that. So he was always very, very sensitive towards all of the rules and how everything went. So as we've kind of worked with him, my daughter not so much. My daughter is, she kind of understands a lot more and understands how, the world works and sees a lot more things from a lot more
usually girls
perceptions.
Are very good in adaptation. I noticed that.
Yes.
Girls are really smart in adjustment because they are born mothers. They're going to be mothers.
Very much.
It's self-instinct too. It is the boys and men I noticed that couldn't be able to handle the stress and decision making.
Yes, and my son also he was going through a very tough time in school. Not academically, he's brilliant. A little too more brilliant than I am, but he was being bullied at school, so he was going through a lot of that as well, and school dynamics and stuff like that. All that to say is that anytime he would come into a situation where something happened and he was embarrassed, he would shy away. He would become recluse, and he wouldn't want to address it, and he would go and hide. And the one thing I said to him was, no, you can't do that. I'm not going to allow you to not face your fear. It's not going to help you. And if I let you do it, then I'm not helping you, because then you're always going to run away.
Okay.
And so it just happened to be last year that he had to do a school project, and who your heroes are. And he used me. And he specifically said, Mom, he says, you have always made me face my fears, even when I didn't want to. And he said, and I thank you. He's only 12, but at least I know that I'm in that right direction. I'm moving him into a world where he's going to be ready to face, because he's going to encounter bullies as an adult.
Absolutely.
He's going to encounter fears. He's going to have to face people yelling at him and people embarrassing him, and so he needs to be able to handle that as an adult. If we coddle our children and don't give them the real talk, it's not going to they're not going to be productive adults.
Somebody said to me, like, if your children can be able to handle the adult level mobile devices and tablets,
Yep.
they can be able to handle the adult level discussion as well.
Oh, absolutely.
So do not take your children too lightly that they couldn't be able to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
They are learning, observing, and managing a lot of adult level discussion in school and all that.
Yes.
But if you're not going to do it, you're not favoring them. So do yourself a favor and start to have the early conversation, because no conversation is too early as a parent, because they're the one who's going to face the real world, and whatever the real world is going to throw at them, they got to be ready for it.
And I completely agree with in that context as well. And in a world of devices, we've had to adapt to them being on their devices.
Right.
And so part of that is teaching them safety and how to be safe online, and what information you can give out and what information you can't, and what information you need to protect from going out into the world. And so that is something, and we had to have real talks, because when they were on certain games that were online, they would be messaged, and not by good, wholesome people, by, predators. And so we had to prepare them. And that's real talk.
Absolutely.
That's real talk. And that's adult conversations that I never thought I would have had as a parent to my children. However, now it's with both my son and my daughter, we take every opportunity and have adult conversations. My children they're not sheltered. They have to understand that they have to live in the world. Mom and dad are not going to be there with them 24/7. I'm a little bit more, I worry a lot more than my husband. So I always look to my husband to, is it okay? Not for permission, but is it okay, because I don't know how to judge. I go into that protective mama bear mode.
Very good.
And so I would just keep them all in this bubble, and I'd be okay with it.
Yeah.
But I know that that's not going to serve them going out into the world, being adults. So I have to be able to trust that they are going to do the right thing. And so one of the things I say to my daughter is, when she goes out, because like I said, she's going on 16, is make good choices. That's it. There's no more be a good girl, because I don't believe that that's a standard anymore that should be for women, for daughters, for girls. But make good choices, because that gives them, they have the choice. They choose right or wrong, and every situation has a consequence.
Absolutely. And moreover too, just to add to what you just said, and I completely agree with you how you're handling and managing this. I think boys sees father as a role model, girls sees mothers as a role model.
Yes.
But now the model needs to be provided by both parents. And honestly speaking, like, my wife has spent more time with kids, of course, because I have to like double
Yep.
work. Life is full of challenge, and these days businesses are very hard to do.
Yep.
She was saying like, why you're not giving time to my son a lot. I say when I come home, I am exhausted, so I'm trying to make up the time on the weekend. But weekdays are the time that he needs it because you need to follow with the school
Yep.
homework and all that. I say if you're doing it, it's a good work. But if I do it for 10 minutes, that is good enough for him because the questions I'm going to ask and everything to him will be so straightforward that I know as a man and how to gauge it, boy, and especially when it's my son. So these are the things like common support
Yes.
for parents. Both parents, I must say, like as a mother, you need to ask and be there for son and daughter, and father to be available for the son and daughter, because if they have question, they need to come to you before they go to the principal or any counsel in the school or college.
Oh, I believe that thoroughly. I say this. I have complete admiration for teachers, for support staff in the schools. Absolutely. I also know that they're not going to be the ones that are going to teach fully everything, and it starts at home.
It's impossible. It's simply not possible.
They're going to teach them. They're going to teach them the basics of certain things that they need to know.
Yes.
But I'm teaching them life skills. I'm teaching them how to get through and be an adult and get through. I will tell you, I am not strong at math. That is not my strong point. My husband takes that role.
There we go.
I will teach them. My son loves to cook. He's a whiz at looking up YouTube and watching YouTube videos
I'll
on.
visit your home then sometime.
I'm telling you, but YouTube videos, and my son is an extremely brilliant history buff.
Wow, and he's 12 years old.
He was 12. He told me, he was telling me in the car last weekend about he says, can I talk to you about can I tell you about the Russian Revolution? I'm like, you can tell me, I'm not going to be involved. I have no idea about it. And then the only thing that I know is that he said Joseph Stalin. I'm like, yep, I know who that was. I know who that was. But other than that, it's my husband does a lot. He's very active with them. And the one thing that I said to my husband is that unfortunately, because of our circumstances, he was not able to be with them through formative years. That was my role, and that's okay. That's okay because those are some of the years that I actually look upon fondly. We always have. I took them to the aquarium on Friday because it was a PA day for them, and one of the things that the three of us laughed about was that we would do this when they were younger, but now every time we see certain fish, we're like, it's all the Pixar movies, Shark Tales. It was, it was Finding Nemo, Finding Dory, like all of that. And I'm like, that's the fondness that I remember of when they were younger. It was sitting there watching, certain shows and certain movies with them till doomsday, I swear. But it was the stuff that I enjoyed. And unfortunately, my husband missed out on those years.
Yes.
But he gets these years.
Very good.
And he spends a lot of time with them.
Very good. Compliments to your husband too.
Absolutely.
Tell him he's a good man. And yes, same thing with me too. Like, early days I have to work double and also the fact is when I'm stressful, I involve myself over and over on a business side. So I stay away a little bit from home, so I get to focus more on the business because when I come home, kids are young. I couldn't be able to focus there.
No.
So bravo to you that you understood this. And now I see and more talking about family relationship and the obstacle you turn into solutions. Lisa, I must say that you can be a personal counsel and a coach.
Thank you.
As well, like, marriage counselor. And in a sense that if you can work with specialists like psychotherapists and the other ones, because they're expensive and they're like taking a whole lot of toll. But mixed not races but mixed like
cultures. Yes.
Marriages are tough to deal with, but the solution is there, and we need to provide the solution right here in the Durham region. And I'm glad that we are having this discussion. So very
Thank
nice.
you.
Very good. So coming back to the business, so you change it, and now the new business you started as a coach and the consultant. So your business thrived from 2021. So please tell us about that.
So in 2021, so 2020, I think we were all kind of in a, what's going on?
Lockdown.
How do we do this? We're all stuck at home. But 2021 seemed to be a little bit more, okay, we've got vaccines, right, wrong, or other, whatever, but we've got vaccines coming in. We're kind of loosening up some of the rules and stuff like that. And so I helped a lot of my clients figure out how to kind of be online and do online in 2020, but then I helped clients thrive in 2021. And one of my clients is a larger leadership, frontline leadership company, and they had to, in 2020, they had to change from in-person training workshops to virtual. And so they had brought on they brought me on at the end of 2020, and it was the owner of the company and myself just kind of figuring out, how to manage it and run it and everything online. And then as I started to work with him, I brought on some of my team members who did Zoom hosting. And so he was doing all of his training workshops online, Zoom hosting, and then, I brought on more people and had more people. And by the end of 2021, I had brought on an additional 4 people. So I was working with a group, a team of about 14 at that point. And a bunch who were with me for a lot longer, and then brought on like 4 or 5 more. All of that to say is that in 2021, I had grossed 6 figures. It was the first time in 6 years. So it was my largest to date. And then 2022 happened. And 2022, I think we all had what the heck just happened? Because we're like, okay, we're out of this, but we're not. And then we're in this recession, but we're not. And we're like, everything was up in the air. We're in a transition. And at the beginning of January 2022, I actually went through my own transformation, which I had decided to do gastric bypass surgery. Okay. And so I took some time, for myself at the end of January for healing, and it was my own transition, my own kind of, how do I do this? And so from there, I really just, I kind of took my time, but because I was kind of transitioning my own self, and I was coming off of a phenomenal year, so I wasn't expecting to not be busy and not have the stuff that I had the year before. Correct. And so then all of a sudden it was like, what's going on? Within the first 3 months, there was nothing. It wasn't busy. Clients weren't coming, and I had these team members that I had just brought on. Mm-hmm. So I was confused and kind of started to kind of think, what is it that I really want? And as I started losing a lot of the weight very rapidly, I was finding myself unsettled and unhappy, and not unhappy with myself. I was doing great myself, but unhappy with my business and unhappy with where it was going or what I was doing. And so I was just trying to figure some things out. So when you had mentioned about the relationship kind of, the stuff, I was like, I kind of contemplated doing my own personal brand about helping relationships and helping women find their happiness and stuff like that. And so that was part of 2022. And then by the end of 2022, I realized I wanted to do corporate consulting, and I kind of had this epiphany. It was because of a news story about quiet quitting. Okay. That kind of popped into my, popped in there, and I'm like, yes, I know exactly what they're talking about. And I went on this whole rant to my husband, and he's like, okay. And I just said, all of a sudden, I'm like, that's it.
Aha moment.
Aha moment. It's like, that's what I want to do. I want to go into corporations and tell them how to make it better, how to make how to engage their employees, how to keep them happy, how to change it and kind of create this space of enjoyment and leadership.
Correct.
And here I am.
That's perfect. It's called corporate culture, but I say the culture starts with you, individual.
Yep.
Because you can have all the protocols, all the rules, all the regulations implemented, but still, if you're not seeing person with respect, if you're not treating them like, respect, if you're not talking to them with respect, that goes a long way. Before we mistreating people, we don't even realize. If you mistreat your pet, dog or cat, they're not even yours. So how do you expect a person who works with you more than the time they give it to their family, 8 to 10 hours a day they work with you, they're going to prosper and be happy with you. So the threshold, besides productivity, catching goals and profit, the threshold also needs to be happiness.
Yes.
We need to bring happiness in the work, and without it, we are finishing the deadlines, we are achieving the results, we're getting the profits, but we're still not feeling fulfilled.
And I think the pandemic really shone a light on that.
Exactly.
And
coming back to the basics.
Yes. It's the corporate culture, and again, I came from corporate culture, so I understand the whole dynamics. I understand the hierarchy. I understand the org chart and the reporting structure. I get it all. And so I know what it was like being the cog in a wheel, in the whole space, and being the employee who just had to produce. Do what I say, not as anything else. Don't ask questions, just do it. And the pandemic really brought a whole new atmosphere.
Yes.
People no longer want to settle. People know that, everybody had to move on to remote. Everybody had to work from home.
Yes.
There is a way, and I was told I had one time I had my son or daughter was sick or something, and I said, "Can I just work from home?" And they're like, "No, we don't do that. No, employees don't do that. I know bosses do that."
Here we go. The CEO was doing it
I know you do it. Yeah, I know you do it. I know you're not letting me do it. So,
yes.
But I knew that there was a way because there was webmail. I could be on my computer. Anyways, all of that to say is that hybrid remote is the way of the future. The way it is now. It's no longer. You do not have to have a bum in seat. You don't.
Absolutely.
It's just
cubicle is a thing of the past.
It's a thing of the past.
Yes, you don't need to get into the commute and all that. Save that time, for the productivity, for the performance.
Oh.
Actually, our business can be able to manage by hybrid or online mainly. So when the pandemic hits, we bought the laptop and we say let's do it. We set up the protocol 2 weeks in place. This is the hierarchy we're gonna go. Now our staff is work from home. But the thing is, what I realized, Melissa, is, and tell me if I'm thinking correctly, besides the corporate coaching and structuring, if your home does not have a peace and happiness, you basically bring that anxiety, depression, and stress on the work.
Absolutely. So to kind of, I had done a post and or I shared a post, I think it was, that just over the last couple of days. And the one thing that I said was that you can still, with being remote, you can still make your appointment, make that meeting, and still be able to, make dinner for the night. You can still go for a run, go to the gym, and still be able to finish that presentation. The one thing that corporations fail to realize is that not everybody is built the same way. I am more productive in the morning than I am in the afternoon. If I have tunnel vision in the morning, it's like I can be on the computer at 8 o'clock in the morning. Don't tell my clients that. But I can be on the computer at 8 o'clock in the morning and I can work probably not good, but I can work all the way to lunch. And I can, just absolutely tunnel vision because I can get it all done. I'm there, I'm in that zone. But in the afternoon, I'm like, I just want to relax. It's like kind of a siesta, if you will, right? You want to okay, I want to rest, I want to decompress, or you want to do something else. I want to go to the gym. I want to take an hour and go to the gym. I have an appointment in the afternoon. Whatever that is, you have that freedom, and I still have afternoon meetings. I choose, I have the luxury of choosing when my meetings are. But if I need to fit in an afternoon meeting, I will. It's just the ebbs and flows of a mutual respect. Somebody had posted, again on LinkedIn, that, I don't need to be there. Like my staff will tell me where they're going. They want to leave for the afternoon because they want to go to, pick up something from school, or they want to go to the grocery store and pick something up. They text me and they tell me, but I don't really care, because if I want to do it, I'm going to do it anyways. And so if I'm going to do it, why not them? And so I know corporate huffies and, bosses and stuff on the back 9 in the afternoon, in the summer. So why are they expecting, if they're allowed to go on to, and play golf for the afternoon, why is it that somebody can't work from home and still answer their telephone calls, still manage the meetings, still be able to do, do all the work, and be able to go and leave at 3:00 or something like that? Like, as long as the work gets done, why do we have to do 9 to 5 in an office space at a cubicle?
It doesn't have to be this way, and I think the companies start to realizing, and this is where the quiet quitting is happening. But now the new protocols are coming, and new generation is coming into the workforce. They are coming in a rule of hybrid, and mixed work environment, some home, some office, and that's the way it should be.
Yes, I agree.
All right, Melissa, thank you. This is going so far very well. My next question to you is, currently the workplace is looking the shortages of the quality workforce, and the employers are complaining there's a labor shortages.
Yep.
So is that the hiring talent is the problem, or missing leadership who can see the talent in it?
So I believe it's a combination of both. So I always say you don't quit your company, you quit the bosses, you quit your management. So there's that one. With that being said, there's also from the employees' standpoint, it's also because they have choices. There are more choices out there, and I was actually on LinkedIn just kind of perusing the jobs and job postings and stuff. There are a phenomenal amount of administrative jobs, support jobs, everything like that out there. So there's a lot more choices for employees to decide. So if they don't want to stay in their company, they can go somewhere else. Now, the other side to that, there is, I was reading an article about skills, that companies are now hiring more for skills than they ever have before. Before, they were hiring based on their qualifications, so education. Now it's more on skills and experience, which is actually a really big shift, because when I started, that's kind of how people came into, was based on experience. And my father, for an example, who is a huge impact in my work, he taught me that he had experience and he had the education, but he wasn't hired in the company that I worked with him at based on his education. It was based on his experience as management. And so it's really a combination. The other thing I'm kind of looking at is, are the employees in the right positions for what they were hired for? So as you know, there's, as an entrepreneur, you know that we do things differently than corporations do.
Correct.
So we base a lot of things on learning skills and experience and stuff like that, and what we bring to the table and our value. One of the things that I'm sure you've heard of, every personality test. So there's the DISC, there's Kolbe assessment, there's Strength Finder, and we've kind of look at a lot of these on where we are in our skills and our levels of experience, our personalities, who we are, and I think that should also be put into the corporate world, because we are not all built the same. And I find that I have a lot of experience, and I'm great at I'm proficient in Word and Excel and this and that. But I'm also not, for an example, I'm not an expert in Excel, nor do I really want to do that. So why don't we shift people into a different part of team where you have a full team working that complement each other? So, for an example, one of the things that I'm working on is with corporate is doing self-directed work teams. Based on the fact that I've worked with, I have my own team, I know who's got the strengths and what they want to do, and where are they in relation. So I am, so for an example, if you follow DISC, I am a high I and a high D. Okay. So influence and dominating. So I'm in that bracket. So high I first and then high D second. In Kolbe assessment, for example, I am a visionary. I envision, my explanations are this, but I am low on implementation. And it's not that I cannot do it. It's that my energy levels, if I have to do it, it's really something I have to focus on. I have to really be like, nothing else can interrupt me in order for me to do that. And I think people, if we focus on those type of things, on where your weaknesses and your strengths are, but don't focus on the weakness and trying to move you into something that you're weak at. Focus on where you're strong at. What are you great at? What thrives you? What makes you, like, puts a fire under your rear end and kind of makes you to do better? Right. And I think that's where a lot of corporations are kind of missing the boat. It's like you're hiring. And have you ever looked at job descriptions? Yes. It's like, it's so blanket. It's like, yeah, of course I'm proficient in Word. If you're not, like, why are you in this realm anyways? Right. Having said that, I know that my husband works at a law office in IT, and so a lot of the things that I hear him at, because he's worked from home, is a lot of the assistants aren't proficient in this or don't know how to do this, and you kind of go, how? Why? What?
Or even typing skills.
Or even typing skills. And I saw in a job description somebody that's looking for 45 words per minute, and I'm like, why does that matter anymore? What does it actually matter? It's not the same as it used to be. You're no longer typing on a typewriter on a keyboard, on an electric keyboard. You're typing on a computer that, fills in a lot of the words anyways. And emails, for an example, we do so much on email, right? Not everybody reads emails thoroughly. No, we don't communicate the same way. We don't receive communication the same way. So I think a lot of corporations are missing the basic of human beings.
True.
And where entrepreneurs kind of, see that and know that is, this is the human is actually where we start from and who they are and so on and so forth. So just to kind of say, it's a combination of both.
Absolutely. You are talking in the right place at the right time, that it is the commonality and common sense that we need to bring at the workplace, rather the rules and regulations and the protocol. Those are good, but those are not working out.
They're not working out because again, we're not in the same realm. We're not in the same environment as we always have been. The corporate culture has changed, regardless of what CEOs, HR, directors, managers want. This is how it's going to be. And there is more of a demand where employees are like, no, I'm not settling. I want more. I want more out of life. I want more for my children. I want more. And to go back to something that you had said about kind of the management and the aging kind of workforce and stuff, is that you've got a lot of so-called boomers is what they're, what the kids are calling it, where they're not retiring. The age of bosses now are so much older than they were before. Everybody was retiring at 60, 55, 60, and now you're kind of having people stay on till 65, 70.
Yes, right.
And so that plays a huge part as well. Yes. And so now you have a bunch of, Gen Ys, millennials, kind of coming into the workforce, and they're like, why are we doing it this way?
Exactly. It's a disconnect because all those old bosses, what they're trying to do, which they learned things 50 years ago in the 50s and 60s, are not applicable as such in a modern time and place. And with the latest tools like, AI tools are implementing and a lot of support is coming, they're still thinking a little bit old school.
Old school.
And when the middle management is trying to tell them, they're on the limbo because who's going to tell the boss? Who's going to put bell in the, bell on the cat kind of situation. Yep. So with this, the friction is we are just like any relationship, Melissa. If you don't listen to your husband or husband don't listen to the wife, it just simply don't work.
Absolutely.
We bosses are just closing the eye. They say, just send me, the spreadsheet and the charts and this.
Yeah.
They're looking at the final reports, but they're not asking people what's going on. They're not going on the floor.
Yes.
Production floor and asking, listen, I'm here to you. I listen to you. Let me buy you all coffee. Take 20 minutes break. Tell me your problems. I'm here to listen. Just not even take 20 minutes, 30 minutes out of your company, but you are glad to firing 5,000 people. That doesn't make sense.
Exactly. And so I'm not saying that I have it all figured out, but to address the issue, you have to recognize that there is an issue.
You're right.
And so one of the things that we hear very, out there is millennials. Millennials are entitled. Millennials are this. Millennials are that. Okay. I have both a brother and a sister who are millennials, so I will say, yeah. But at the same time, we also have to listen to each other, and we have to understand where we're coming from. If it's not working, because the millennials are not going anywhere. They are our next generation to come in to the workforce.
That's a fact. We need to understand and listen to them.
Fact. So why don't we listen and understand and try to maneuver, try to say, okay, so how can we improve on something that we have? And so it's kind of, so some of the solutions, for example, that I have is, why don't we take a survey, an employee survey. So one of the things that I have understood, and I think I come from experience as well, is that corporate employees do not trust HR.
Bingo. I think that's the line of the year. You said it. And because of that, it caused entire, the collapse of the management and the disconnect of the people and everything, because that one single department is not echoing correctly. When you cannot even win the company nor the war if you do not have trust in there.
If you don't have the trust, so it goes kind of, I say poop rolls downhill. So if you don't have, if the employees don't trust in HR, then they don't trust management, they don't trust upper management, and they just don't trust the board, the CEO, the vision of the company. So now what? So now you have a bunch of employees going, screw you, not doing it, I refuse, I'm quit. And also keep in mind that not everybody has the same buy-in. So where you have some people all about the money, that's great. But there are some employees that have families and want to have the work-life balance and want to be there for their children. And that doesn't mean that it's just women, by the way. That's another thing that I think we need to kibosh on all of that stuff, is that this whole woman factor, blah, 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 you're leaving to go. No, sorry, stop. Because it's not just all the women. Men want to be home for their children just as much as I'll take my husband, for example.
Yes.
He never wanted to be on, working 2 jobs. He had to, because of our financial situation, because of our situation of where we were. That's it. I was primary caregiver because I kind of controlled that. I wanted to be that. I wanted to have children. I wanted to be the primary caregiver. And again, that was a whole other ballgame. But bottom line is that fathers want to be there as just as much.
Absolutely. Just in case if you're a single father, what you
Yes.
can do, like when you
Tons.
when you have kids on your custody time, you're responsible.
Yes.
And going home is not the opportunity you can be able to have. The daycare is offering $10 per day kind of thing.
Oh, that's genuous.
But the thing is, father needs to have same flexibility as the mothers do.
Yes.
And putting the things again onto the woman is just such a wrong impression. It just doesn't make sense. People just doesn't get it over blaming women.
Yeah.
What I see is fundamental shift is happening, Melissa. Is just before the World War One or during the World War One, people realized we have to put the woman to the workplace.
Yes.
And they did. They took responsibility and they did a phenomenal job. Because of that rules change, the stigma breaks, and it become acceptable for women to work, and then they start to have a voice. They start to have the rights and all that. Now it's coming down to, okay, we're done with the men, done with the women, we're done with the a race card at all. Men, women,
Don't get me started, but
don't
yeah.
matter. Yeah, but what is what we're going to do now? Employees are rising up and they're saying, let's be honest, let's be straight, let's be clear. All right, not I'm from the creative industry, so I deal with a lot of creative artists and designers. They say, I'm willing to work for the less money, but if you pay me on time and be honest with me.
Yes.
That's what they say. They say, enhance my creativity more than exploitation of the giving me the whole lot of the work I don't want or couldn't handle and expect the best results.
Yep.
It's simply just not going to fit. It's just your scenario is that you need to know operation wise how the Excel works, but you don't need to be an accountant CA level of Excel expert. No. It's not your forte, it's not your job. But if somebody can be able to do it in your team, that's good. And this is where we're saying it's literally email. I say it there was a term called paper pushers.
Yes.
I say paper pushers, email forwarders, and text message senders.
Yeah.
People are just doing that and not fulfilling. I did that. I filled that task on the tasker. I don't have any other responsibility and role. It's a collective responsibility.
And it's people are just not built the way they were built before. I will admit I was a paper pusher. Oh. Okay, I that was my role. I did that. I put a grin. But then I shifted. I'm a big picture type of person, and so I want to know, why are we doing this? There's a better way, right? And I always got shot down by the bosses. Don't ask questions, just do. And so that was okay, so now my voice has to be quieted. I have to be, I can't be who I was or who I am. I was always, the chatty one, the talkative one, the social one. And I was reprimanded multiple times because I was not able to be who I was. And I had relations with everybody because I'm that type of person. I would talk to, the employees. I would, talk to the customers. I would give them this support. And not everybody is built the same. Certain people need hand-holding, and certain people need to be understood and heard. That's all they want, whether it's customer, whether it's employees. Yeah. That is who they are. So that is, I'm in tune with that. But the bosses didn't like it.
And if this happened to you, Melissa, in this day, age, and time, as a Caucasian woman,
I'd be pushed out the door.
imagine the other woman from South Asian countries, African countries, and the other one, what they go through.
Yep.
Like amount of stress, and it is really humiliated and stressful, and that is why we have such a anxiety level we face in the society these days, and good companies but bad behavior.
Absolutely, and that's one to your point. That's another thing that I am very sensitive towards is that I understand that I have white privilege. I am a Caucasian woman who, I can get away with a lot. I don't take that advantage, but that is something that I'm very aware of. So me, somebody who is diverse, Black, Muslim, visual minority, that is somebody that doesn't have a voice. That is someone that is going to be shushed. So if I was shushed being Caucasian, darn right that she is going to be shushed as well. And that's not right either. And so I use my platform to speak up for and show other, Caucasian, white privileged, the same scenario. Listen, this isn't right. You cannot do this. This is no longer accepted.
Very good, very good. And this is a brave thing you're doing, and I must give you the credit. You're doing such a great job.
Thank you.
How you're handling the situation. So very well done.
Thank you.
Good, very good.
Thank you.
My next question to you is, which level of the coaching do you provide? Entry level, middle level, or upper level management in the companies?
So there's part of what I'm doing is customized services. So depending on what the corporation is looking for to do is what I want to take on. So for an example, there could be employees that, an employee survey, for example. They want to get a pulse on what their employees are thinking. And because their employees don't trust HR, they're going to have a hard time trusting me. So one of the things that I want to be able to offer is mentorship and coaching. And with that, it's kind of having a one-on-one and getting them to understand who I am. And so that's going to take some time. But that would be the lower, front lines. Yes. And then there's also the middle management and even upper management, because again, when you're dealing with corporations, you're dealing with everybody from the top down. And so it really depends on, do you have leaders? And are there places where you can improve your leadership within the management pool, whether that's middle or upper? Same thing with supervisors. And again, it depends on the structure of the corporation. But when I was in corporate, we had, we always had my boss. So that was kind of the middle management, and then we had upper management, and then we had the higher levels, the big guys, and then we were all down on the bottom. But I definitely believe that there is room for all levels, even the CEO. Because CEO, I'm a CEO. Mm-hmm. I've done a lot of the things as well. So
absolutely. And what I also realized, a lot of time the CEO and head of the organizations are good, but they are having a struggle going through the middle management to HR to employees level, because they have to answer the board.
Yes.
And this is where the politics and diplomacy and other craziness of the corporate world comes in, and they feel like, I wanted to make this change.
Yes.
But the thing is, who's going to work on it to bring it?
And that's a really good point as well. Is yes, you are dealing with stakeholders. A lot of the corporations there are stakeholders. So it is, how do you get it past the board? How do you get it approved? How do you move it forward? Mm-hmm. And that's a whole other. And that's where I also understand that you're not, when we make decisions as entrepreneurs, we can make decisions like that. We can implement like that. Corporations are a lot slower because there's a lot more levels to go. Mm-hmm. And so I completely understand that. At the same time, it's also, if you want to make it, you need to make it.
Absolutely. And honestly speaking, it doesn't have to be too difficult.
No.
You make it as a weekly, survey into the email system. Why don't you start your week with this so we can get some data? Don't get reporting on it until the quarterly reporting comes in.
Absolutely. Even if as I said to as I was working through the services and kind of moving into this, is that we don't have to go grand. We don't have to go big. We can start small and then, see where we go from there. If, maybe it's an employee that's just not living up to the potential. And so you want to address that. So you want to get some coaching. Maybe, you need a bit, you've got administrative assistants, like a pool of administrative assistants, and they need a little bit of mentorship. I've been there, done that for over 20 years. So why not start on that level? Maybe you want to take a pulse of your employees and what they're thinking. So yeah, let's do a survey. Let's get that out there. We can do a full, coverage of, here's why I'm, coming in, here's all about me. And so you're at least kind of feeling a little bit more comfortable. And I'm not reporting back, it is confidential survey. I'm not reporting back to
Good.
HR.
Good.
It's not about that. It's about, listen, you have a chance, an opportunity to tell the company where they need to fix, where they need to focus. And again, not everybody's going to have the same scenario. Not everybody's going to have the same input, because not everybody is at the same level. I use this analogy. My father and I, we are so far apart in politics, and we're to the point where we have gotten into severe arguments at Thanksgiving over politics. But one thing that I've learned and really understand is that my father and I are not in the same place. He is a senior. He needs, health care. He needs, pension. All of that is his focus. My focus, I have children. I'm worried about education. I'm worried about their future. I'm also concerned about my father, an elder, and pension and healthcare. I'm also worried about, I'm getting older, and what's my future looking like? Am I going to be able to retire? Is there going to be anything left? So it's all in that concept. But a lot of where we are, it's just different. We're just different lives, different scenarios. Some people work with children, some people don't. Some people have elderly parents, some people don't. Some people have, they have pets and they live downtown Toronto and they have condos and they have lifestyle. That's where they are. It doesn't mean one's better than the other. It just means they're different and they have different points of view and different ways of thinking.
The theories got so complicated, lifestyle got so complicated. The world is not only serving within the same city in the country, is become the global village in reality, in real time as we're speaking, and AI is walking into the room as well.
Yes.
So we have to make the room for that. It's not going to go away, so we need to adjust it. The thing is, once and foremost is HR wants to do their job too. The issue they're facing is they are bonded by such strict laws that if you're sick, if you're coughing, and if you're sneezing, I cannot even ask you, do you even have a flu?
Yes.
That will be against the employee respect or confidentiality. It's a voluntarily disclosure.
Yeah.
So with that, they want to help, but their hands are tied. My hands are there, but I cannot reach to you to for you a cup of water.
Which is also why it's also part of a systemic situation as well.
There you go.
So there's so many guidelines and rules and a lot of things, and I get it. I do understand that there are guidelines and rules and regulations and you abide by this and that and the other. But the other side of this coin is that there are other ways. There's ways to do it within the guidelines, within the rules, and still have empathy. And I think that's where a lot of corporations think that, well, we can't have empathy because we can't show, weakness.
There you go.
No, you're showing your true your trueness, your authenticity, your caring for your employees. That is what a lot of them want. They want to know that you actually give a rat's behind about them. Because yes, you're paying them, absolutely. And yes, they are working, absolutely. But if you're just focused on the bottom dollars, you're not going to get anywhere with your employees. And you're going to get a lot of employees saying, bye.
That's it. People are burning it out a lot. It's
Oh,
not like,
burnout.
doctors and nurses and the other,
Yes.
healthcare professionals, frontline workers, salute to them. But the thing is, the bottom line is coming that honesty needs to be front.
Yes,
Sincerity.
yes,
Dignity.
Yes.
Respect.
yes,
Tolerance.
yes.
These things are not like, adjectives out of the dictionary. These are the reality of the time. And I tell you, and I kid you not, I get to hire the talent and be reasonable, respectful to them. I tell them that, this project doesn't have this, or this is, I'm doing it for not for profit, or this is what I'm doing charity. I'm not even charging
Yes.
you. Can you come on board? And a lot of people say, why didn't you even tell me before? I could do it as pro bono, no problem. I said, thank you very much kindly. And at the end of the project, I give them the credit. And that's the way to go. Just
Leave
be
it
honest.
up. Leave it up to see, and that's even more to the point of where some people will work. They'll work and work and work because that's what they want. They have no problem on giving more to a company. They have, that they have more to give. There are some people that just cannot because of their circumstances, because they have family members, because they don't have childcare. We're just not all the same. We're not,
Right.
and it doesn't mean one's better than the other. It just means that we're different. And so taking that into consideration, an employee, because they're not staying after hours, is not lazy or disrespectful, or doesn't care about the company, is that their circumstances, because they have to be at a certain place to pick up their child because childcare ends by 6 o'clock and they have an hour and a half to travel. Guess what? That's not, are you going to pay them for that hour and a half of travel?
Even though if you're going to pay for that, if they are late, who's going to be responsible?
Who's going to be responsible for their child? And that's not, and again, it's not about you that's not your responsibility. I get it, but that's their responsibility.
Yes.
And that's therefore your responsibility to understand that they need that allowance and that they need, and so an easier way to handle it is,
Right.
hey, how about we allow employees to choose a hybrid model or a remote model where they can now go and pick up their child at 6 o'clock, still work for you throughout those days, be more productive. And then if you need them into the office because there's a big meeting or there's a client that's going to come into the office, now you go, okay, you know what? I don't need you any other time except for this day. Can you be here at this time, this time, this time? Do you know how many more employees are going to say, you know what, you've given me everything, so I'm going to give you more?
You're right. You're right.
That it's a give and take.
It's just like a relationship and marriage.
Yes.
Yes. Nobody is winning solo. You got to win it together.
That's it.
And this is where the bosses, draw the line, this and that. If you ever come to our office, Digipix office, we have open office environment, just like Google and Facebook, no walls.
Yep.
So whenever I'm doing, coaching, training, sales, and all that, my employees are listening. My brothers say, you shouldn't talk about the numbers in front of the employees. I say, don't
Why
worry
not?
about it. Don't worry about it. Those time and age is gone where you were hiding things. They were eventually going to find out.
Yep.
People have the accesses. The company I'm working for, my employees and the vendors don't know. They know.
Yep.
But the thing is, it's not only that contract value that I'm bringing. I'm bringing the value overall as a team, overall as a brand, overall as a consulting. And this is my contribution, and the client knows it. That the leadership they're getting, they're going to have throughout. One of the things my client said, okay, I get it. You're selling your company, good. But after we sign, who's going to work on it? I say, I'm going to work on it. You say, so you are the founder of the company, you are doing the sales, and you're going to be project manager? I say, yes. We manage the project because usually 3 to 4 months our project finishes. So if I hand it over and I'm not managing, then project is done, delivered. But if you want me to manage out after 3-4 months timeline, then I will assign someone internal. But first, hand-holding, I'm guaranteeing.
Absolutely.
You build a relationship with me, I'm going to walk it through with you. It's not like the car dealership scenario.
Yeah.
Sales is separate. As soon as the sale is done, salesperson, take a week off.
It's like, bye.
Bye. Goodbye.
Yep.
Next time you call, hey, I'm sorry, my job was only for sales, call service. And service, after 2-3 extensions.
Sorry, you hit another nail on the head. Is that how many times have you called an XYZ company and you go, yeah, I want to talk to customer service, and then they'll throw you over to customer service, and customer service will say, well, that's not us, we go over to here, and then you go over to there, and they're like, well, no, you gotta go over to here. Then you go over to here, and they're like, I don't know. And why can't a company work in tandem? Why is it departments? Why is it separate? Why do we have to do this? Why can't we just have somebody, for an example, one of the things that I'm prepared to help corporations with is build self-directed work teams. Mm-hmm. So one of the things is why don't you have a team made up of every single department?
Correct.
Why don't you have a representative of those departments? Why don't you have somebody who is brilliant at marketing strategies? Why don't you have somebody that's brilliant at sales? Why don't you have somebody brilliant at working at administrative, and not only brilliant at it, but enjoys it, finds it thrives in the passion? Yes. That's a super team. Mm-hmm. And that is also a team that you don't need a manager, because guess what? Mm-hmm. They now work alongside it. They find their own solutions. Mm-hmm. They develop their own strategies. Mm-hmm. They look at each other going, I want this, I want this, I want this. Great. Okay, let's do this. Yes. And it's like, okay, break, It's a whole different way of looking at corporate teams and just thriving.
Absolutely. It's not competing, it's thriving.
It's thriving. There's no competition. Why are we competing? I don't want it. I say it this way. I have a bookkeeper who works on the team. I don't want to do bookkeeping. Mm-hmm. I hate bookkeeping. I hate numbers. Again, I go back to my point. I'm not good at math. So for me, I'm not going to go and say, okay, I'm going to do bookkeeping. I have an HR professional. She has a background in HR. I don't want to do HR. I'm not expecting to do HR. I'm not jumping into corporations saying, this is HR. This is not HR, what I'm bringing you. But any HR questions, I have an HR person on the team. Mm-hmm. I have, a customer service person. I do great with customer service. I will say that is kind of my background.
You're a people person.
I'm a people person. I'm a gatekeeper. But I also I'm a giver. What can I do for you? How can I help? And so I can do that. But you know what? I also love and kind of thrive in the vision and the strategy and how do we fix this problem?
Absolutely.
And that's where I want to shine, and that's kind of my secret sauce, if you will.
No, this is very good sauce, and and I'm really glad that you're sharing publicly, through our podcast. This is very good. I tell you, and I kid you not, with my technology and design and now cybersecurity and all that background, and with your HR and communication and customer service background, if we step into the company and say, why don't you let us run the company under the board direction and all that, we will change the game in 2 weeks. That's it.
It's just like, wow.
It doesn't have to be.
I just say it's like a magic wand.
I should have a sound effect into this, which I'm not planning to do that, but that's true. That's true. So, and you know what? There is no magic pill, but there's a magic formula. People know that, but they are afraid to hit it, because so many things that what's going to happen, who's going to say what's going to say. Just be honest.
Nobody wants to make a mistake.
You know what? This is another thing. Who we're kidding? Nobody wants to mistake, and nobody wants to die. Yeah. You die anyway. Be real.
But you look at, so I don't know if you follow Gary Vee, but I do. So Gary Vee is like, he tells it like it is, whether you like it or not.
You're right.
He tells it like it is. And the one thing is like, do you think that he didn't make a gazillion mistakes before? Do you not think that Tony Robbins made mistakes? All of these people, all of these entrepreneurs, all these billionaires have made mistakes.
Several.
And it's you learn from your mistakes.
Yes.
That's the point.
Yes.
You can't do it right the first time. You can't do it all right, because you're not going to, if you did it all right, if everybody did it all right, everybody would be like, oh, okay, then there's no growth.
I was just talking to Olenka, a lawyer, just before this podcast, and she said, life is all about ups and downs. So what I relate this to, for common man to understanding, if you are in a straight line, nothing is happening, you're pretty much dead. Just like a dead heart has no beat. Heartbeat is up and down.
Yes.
That is life. But the thing is, you maintain it. Where you maintain in middle. So up and down hoping, but this is the maintain. Are you coming back? If heart go up but doesn't come down, is bad. So that we need to find the balance to it. So this is very good. You have an eye and passion for all of those things. So very good.
Thank you.
So Melissa, tell me, do you also coach as startups too?
I'm absolutely open to that. One of the things that I find is, because I've got the entrepreneur experience as well, is that I can discuss and kind of set them up for success. So I've built my business from the ground up, as I'm sure you have as well. And so yes, I can definitely work with startups, and it just depends on what they want to accomplish.
That's great. As you know, there are a lot of parents who are really good parents working hard, especially immigrant parents, but they struggle to coach and lead, become a good example for their teenagers. And when the kids hit teenage, they tend to change a lot of things and asking a rightful question, and parents doesn't have a knowledge.
Yes.
Even though the parents who are born and raised here, they don't know how to handle the teens and answer them. Do you have any coaching or sessions for teenagers?
Is something that I'm actually open to. One of the things I had mentioned before was I was looking at kind of relationship coaching from my personal brand, and so part of that I was exploring the potential of coaching the teens. With the fact that I have my own teenage daughter, I coach her, whether she realizes it or not. So her and we watched, I don't know if you know the show, This Is Us. And so one of the things that we did, that was our show that we would watch, and we would sit there and we would cry together, and throughout the show, which was, I think, with no commercials, it was about 41 minutes. We would stop it a gazillion times over, because I would coach her, I would teach her, I would tell her, this and that, and apply it to real life and situations that I've gone through in my life, so that she doesn't necessarily make the same mistakes. Go ahead and make mistakes. You're going to always make mistakes, but don't make the same mistakes that I did, if I can help you. And so that's one of the things that I thrive, is because I think parents, I came from a loving family. My dad, my mom, are still together, and they did the best that they could. They didn't have the knowledge, the experience. I am the oldest of my family and of my siblings, and so I look at them from the standpoint of, I was the latchkey kid. I was the one that, worked at 14. I was the responsible one. I had all of, this, but I realize now that there was a lot of baggage that I carried forward. And so a lot of the things that stemmed from that. And I think that teenagers now need to be given the real raw truth. Within reason. I mean, they don't need to know every single thing about life.
With the threats in life and the modern digital technology coming in, as you say, if you're playing game and somebody coming in, people are not scamming you right at the doorstep. They're scamming you through from different devices, games,
absolutely,
and offerings and all that. So that needs to be taught. And also, I'm thinking, compared to us, kids these days are getting mature early.
I completely agree. Like I said, I have a 12-year-old son as well, and some of the things that he knows, and it's not that I don't want him to know. It's just he knows.
He knows. It's
He just
very
knows.
early, yes.
And so I'm not going to shy away from it. I'm going to address it head on. And I think a lot of parents, they don't know how to, and that's fair. Like, I mean, these kids didn't come with instructions, so I just kind of base it on each individual. My daughter and my son, they are two different people. My daughter is very mature. My son is very mature, but in different ways. I love them. I say I love them, equally, but I do things differently with each of them because they are different individuals. So you address it in different individuals. My parents kind of tried to do the same thing with all of us, but they didn't succeed. I was different than my sister. My sister was different than my brother. My brother was the baby. He was, I always say he was the golden child. So, he was the favorite. And so I look at it from that standpoint where you're different. They're all different.
Absolutely. When you are the top of the sibling, it's just like a corporate hierarchy. Responsibilities are much higher. And rewards are much lower.
Yep.
But when you're lower, your responsibilities
is
less and rewards are lower.
And it's true. And I always say to my siblings, I'm like, I paved the way for you guys. I'm like, I did all the hard work. I did all this. I broke mom and dad in like crazy. So you guys got easy road.
Very good.
So, but that's the thing. It's not every family is the same. I have real talks with my kids, both of them, and I don't sugarcoat it. I give them real talk. They need, if my husband and I, when we went through our tough times, the only thing that I said to them was, we are doing the best we can. This is not, we love you.
Yeah.
We are working on it. We are figuring it out. It's not, it's not your fault. It's not anybody, this is where we are.
Yes.
And it was challenging because we had some really loud arguments. We're, drawn out for late nights and that sort of thing. So the kids heard a lot. But we did our best. It was, we weren't great at that point. So now my daughter even said to me one night, she had a bad dream and she came downstairs and she said to me, she says, I'm so happy that you and Dad worked it out. And I'm like, wow. Me too. But it's that sort of thing. We showed them that it's okay to have arguments and it's okay to be angry and it's okay to have these battles, but it's not about being in them. It's how you get out of them. It's how you transition out of them. And if we found that it was better that we weren't together because we just couldn't salvage it, then that would have been something that we would have had to address as well. My daughter had said to me, she says, we have a lot of her friends' parents are divorced. And I'm like, she's like, it's nothing new. So I'm like, okay, well, that's a matter of fact. And yes, you're right. Now, we might be the exception, the lucky ones, the exception to the rule that we did our work. Yes. But not everybody is meant to be together for life.
So I give you a scenario, which let's discuss it.
Yeah.
And if it is good, spread it out to the world.
Go ahead.
So we need to understand marriage as an institution.
Yes.
And just like, a boxing ring, you're not allowed to leave. You're allowed to fight until you fell down and knock out. So why would you think the route to divorce? You need to stay in the ring. Fight as much as you can. Because if you're not fighting, what will happen? Divorce is the final entity. Yep. We know that. But that's the exit strategy.
Yep.
I don't want you to take exit strategy, corporately speaking, right? I want you to take the strategy which is going to work. Either you fight or you hold the anger, being abusive or committing a suicide. What do you want? That's too extreme.
It's not that easy though.
I understand that. But on the other hand, what's happening is you have proven that we made a fight. We understand it was not good. We're acknowledging it now, but we are not back together.
Yeah.
What kids saw, fighting was not bad, is not good, but fighting comes to the realization it's not worth it, and comes to the conclusion, let's live it together.
Yep.
So it's better than divorce. We need to save our marriages.
And I agree with that. But I think a lot of people they don't know how.
That's true.
They don't know how.
They don't know how to manage it. Since you were smart enough, and since you handled a lot of siblings and parents, and you were older, you tend to manage it. All right?
I will say this. Ego gets in the way.
Got it.
Ego gets in the way. And I had a very good coach who called me out on a lot of my BS.
Okay.
And so that was something that I had to overcome because ego gets in the way, and pride and stuff like that. Now, I went and did my own work, and I did therapy, and I had a coach. My husband didn't do therapy. That's not his forte.
It's not about men. It's not about him. Men usually don't believe on this. They say, why do I need it?
And especially different cultures.
Yeah, correct.
Different cultures, different. So I understand that, and I also say that the whether you believe in this or not, but I have Virgos. Okay. So my husband's a Virgo, my dad's a Virgo, my sister's a Virgo, my best friend's a Virgo, my other best friend's a Virgo. I have Virgos, and Virgos, all of them are the same. They are stubborn, pig-headed, and just blah. So I look at that going, there's something there. I don't know what. I don't know if it's that, but there's something there. But I look at it from the standpoint of ego. And I was able to go have a look at myself in the mirror and go, is it worth it? And one thing that I will say this because I carry it forward now to this day. My coach had said, would you rather be right or would you rather be married? That's what it was. Would you rather be right or would you rather be married? And that was ego. Wow. Your ego tells you if you're going to hold on to being right, or is it that you just want to be happily married? And I had to face a lot of that and go, yeah, because I could have taken the stance, I'm right, I am always right, I am right. But it's not. You're not listening. If you think you're right, you're no longer listening. If you're no longer listening, then there's no communication. And so I had to take a long, hard look and look in the mirror and go, what is it that I want? Yes.
Melissa, I think you're blessed to have a good coach, and
she's brilliant.
And how you handle the situation. Now you become the ultimate coach. You saved not only the companies, but you shifted up, put yourself, your body in shape, your career in shape, and your family in shape. So this is
the trifecta.
So that's right to all goodness. So when people needs to hire, they need to see the struggles too. So very, very good. Just put a little bit spotlight. How do we reduce the corporate waste of time? Because I realize that people waste a lot of time in large meetings and group meetings and some of the networking sessions, which are play golf kind of scenario. I get it, team building exercises and all that, but it does not affecting the end results as they should. So how do we reduce the corporate waste of time in the company expense?
So one of the things that I think we have to address is the meetings. What are we doing in the meetings? What's the agenda? The one thing when I was in corporate, it was we were having a meeting to have a meeting to have a meeting. Yes. We were planning the next meeting. What are we doing? Yes. So we need to have an agenda first with regards to meetings. And if you don't have an agenda, if it's just because we scheduled a meeting or because we're telling the front lines people on what this is, or we're having a meeting to plan a meeting for another meeting,
don't pursue.
There's no point. Yes. I have a standing meeting, a standing weekly meeting with my clients, with my virtual assistant clients. But that is because that sets me up for the week. So it's okay. So what are we doing? What do we need to accomplish? Here's what you need to know, because that saves on having to write a gazillion emails. Right. That saves on having to go back and forth. Yes. And so those are structured meetings for that reason. If we don't need those meetings, then we cancel the meeting.
Got it.
That's it.
Got it.
Now, as far as time wasters, like let's say team building, team building is team building is essential, but that comes along with trust. When I was again, going back to my own experiences in the corporate world, we had team building exercises, and it was fun to get out of the office and all of that. But did it really make the difference when we got back? No, because we fell back into the same thing because we didn't address the elephant in the room, which was communication, which was distrust, which was disengagement, which was and the list continues. So in order to do a team building exercise, you need to have trust, or you need to address the elephant in the room, which is the trust, and trust across the board, which is, and again, going back to, a frontlines, an employee survey, kind of taking a pulse about how they do feel. And then you can kind of build on it, bring in a retreat, do kind of a lunch and learn, addressing some of the issues on how to bring some trust, build some trust, building up to a team building exercise. And then your team building exercise will come just that much more.
Yes.
And as far as kind of distrust within or wasting the time, in other ways, I will be the first one to tell you that when I was in corporate, I did my work in the morning. Again, going back to my productivity, I'm productive in the morning. By the afternoon, I was taking, coffee breaks. I was going, I didn't smoke, but everybody else smoked, so I would go out for the smoke breaks, just for the socialization.
Yes.
You need a break. So in the entrepreneurial world, I'm sure you've heard, every 90 minutes, right? You should take a break because your attention span is good for 90 minutes. You've got about 90 minutes of something that you can focus on, and then otherwise you kind of lose track and you go and then you also have how many times do you get interrupted, right? So in one of my last jobs, I would have people ring the doorbell and come by my desk and stuff like that. So I was interrupted consistently. And that's just because because of my role had changed from when I first started, and I became the receptionist as well. So I got interrupted, and when you get interrupted, to get back into focus, it takes you about 5 minutes to get back to where you were.
Correct.
So now that's time lost. So there's a lot of pieces that come into it. And if I'm answering your question, properly, it's that you just have to address a lot of those issues and understand that, going back to the whole remote and hybrid model, and not everybody can work remotely. That's another big scenario that we have to. It took me a while to go from that corporate world environment where I was a hustle and bustle, lots of people, coworkers, etc., to go into a solitude of remote working and be disciplined enough. And a lot of people cannot do it. So it's something that I had to do. But we've all been doing it for the last 2 years, last 3 years. So if they haven't figured it out now, they're never going to. So, but you have to assess each employee individually to decide. But if they have that option, they're probably likely going to be a lot more productive in a remote environment or a hybrid environment than they would being in the office environment only.
Yeah. Don't enforce the office environment. Give the people choices.
Give them choices.
Because if someone has the newly child and up till for 6 months to 1 year, it's difficult.
I was 2.
And if somebody has challenged parents with Alzheimer or dementia, that's even tougher.
Yeah.
So we need to understand the people's problems on the ground level and ask them. And I'm going to address something. We used to have common independent audit, accounting audit, corporate audit, and all that.
Yep.
We need to have independent audit for HR and our customer service relationship and employee relationship with the management and all that. And with that, do not humiliate anybody, but to get into the resolution where we can be able to help.
Yes, and that's a really good point, is that we're not the reprimand, the day of the reprimand, or being written up or being threatening to your employees is not acceptable.
Right.
You're not serving them, you're not helping them.
Yeah.
You need the approach, and again, going back to leadership versus management, you approach an employee who is struggling and understanding and kind of giving them some understanding, like, where are we, what's going on, because I'm noticing this and or that, and you're not quite up, we're just concerned. But again, that goes back to trust, because they're not going to open up to you if they don't trust you. And if they fear you, if they fear reprimand and fear being written up, again, they're not going to come to you.
Okay.
They're not going to address it.
Okay, Melissa, very good conversation. I enjoyed this podcast so much, I cannot even tell you. So just wrapping things up, do you have any mission or vision statement that would you like to tell our audiences?
Off the top of my head, I cannot tell you what my mission statement is, but it's to show that corporations can change and work with self-directed work teams. It's something that the corporate culture, as it was yesterday, is no longer viable, is no longer what's wanted. And you can change it and move into a different direction. And that's kind of where my mission is to see both sides, because I've done the corporate and I've done the entrepreneur, and there's a cohesion right there. There's like just a mix of we can do both. We can mix and match bits and pieces of it. And I think that's really important to understand.
And that makes you the ultimate coach.
Thank
you should
you.
use this tagline for your business.
Ultimate
because
coach.
You have the corporate experience as well as entrepreneurship, and transition to that too. And combine it with the personal coaching to save your marriage and your teenagers. Voila.
Thank you.
So, Melissa, thank you very much for coming into our show. Before we go, how do our audiences are going to contact us? Your phone number, your website, and email?
Absolutely.
Because people are going to listen this on the listening version too, so please.
Certainly. So you can contact me by email, melissa@efficientbusinesssolutions.ca. You can also go onto our website, efficientbusinesssolutions.ca, or you can contact me by telephone at 289-240-2561.
Wonderful. Perfect answer. Thank you, audiences, for listening of today's podcast. We really appreciate your time. I'm also thankful to the Work Hub for providing this recording space to us. If you'd like your story to be heard on our podcast, we'd like to invite you as a guest to come in and speak. Please contact Digipix today at 289-275-2147 or email us contact@digipixinc.com. Thank you very much to you all, and have a wonderful day.